David, let's start this conversation in 2016 when you left David's Tea. Walk us back to that time and what happened at that time in terms of the next decision that you made.
Well, so I came off this amazing journey and ride at David's Tea. I decided that it was time for me to exit the company and move on to other things. And I was living in Boston at the time because we had taken David's Tea into the US and we had an office in Boston. And we decided to move back to my hometown, which is Ottawa. A very young family at the time. And I was looking for my next chapter, for something to do. And living in the US, you have, I have a life where I'm always on the go, and I want food. I like to eat healthy, but I need food quickly when I need it. So the US is about 10 years ahead of Canada in terms of fast food. You just higher quality fast food. And moving back to Ottawa, I found that the market was lacking food that is both good for you and makes you feel good, but also tastes good. You know, on the one hand, you want flavor, but you don't want to feel sluggish. And on the other hand, you don't want to be eating bird food and be hungry again in 2 hours. So that was kind of, after complaining about this for enough times, I finally said, all right, I'm going to do it. And this will be my next kind of undertaking. And so we decided to open Mad Radish. And the concept has evolved so much in the 3 years since we opened it. We realized very quickly that people still want heartier meals a lot of the time. So we do a lot of fresh vegetables in season in the summer, but it's winter 8 months of the year in Canada, pretty much. So we very quickly shifted the menu into a lot more bigger flavors, international cuisine, marinated chicken that we make fresh every single day in stores, a lot of roasted vegetables, dishes like a Vietnamese bowl with noodles or a piri-piri chicken dish, and then made-to-order sandwiches as well. So that's kind of where the journey went and where it started. And then heading into COVID, things were going well. We were learning the business and we were starting to grow, particularly in the 5-day-a-week office markets where we were very strong.
It's March of 2020. COVID-19 is declared a pandemic. What is going through your mind knowing that, of course, when we talk about the retail industry, those physical businesses are going to be severely impacted?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. COVID hit, it was the biggest black swan event you could possibly imagine. Our business almost evaporated overnight. We had to close 4 of 6 stores almost right away. We had all these catering orders lined up, and I remember the Friday before the world basically shut down. They all just one by one started calling to cancel. And so, immediately we went into damage control. We had to let go of the majority of our team in the stores. But once, a little bit of time started to pass, we got to thinking what this means. What does it mean for the future of food service, of quick service restaurants? What changes are going to come out of this? And what things also are going to remain the same? And what can we learn and apply? So there's a great deal of uncertainty, but what are we pretty sure is likely to be the outcome? What changes can we make that will move us forward and get us to a better place? And so we really came back to the idea that really what COVID has done is made us all a lot more comfortable with digital, using apps, using the internet. Many of us were already there prior to COVID, but a lot of us hesitated with it, and that shift now, I think, is going to be lasting. We've accelerated 5-10 years of development into a very short time frame. And so even before COVID, you had a multi-channel approach. Customers were beginning to demand, they wanted to be able to buy in-store, on your app, on delivery from a host of different platforms, whether it's Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes or Fedora or Foodie or Platters. There's no shortage of them. And they wanted to be able to seamlessly order at different times from in all these different ways. And what COVID did is shift the distribution mix a lot more towards delivery in particular. And it raised the expectation of what customers want from delivery. And all of this comes at a big cost to the restaurant business. It adds cost both in the fees that these platforms charge, but also in the complexity of the operation. It's a lot harder to manage orders coming in from all these different places. It's a complete game changer. And I think that we quickly realized that if food service is going to survive, the model needs to change entirely. You either need to offset these costs somewhere else, or you need to drive more sales out of the same physical location. So, we felt that we either strengthen our value proposition and figure out how to do that, or we end up one of the companies that simply doesn't make it when the industry consolidates. So that's really where we landed, is how do we strengthen our value proposition around the idea that it's going to be multi-channel, even more so than it was prior to COVID, with an increased emphasis on delivery and on digital.
So for some businesses, when you talk about the digitization of businesses, this idea that you are adopting new digital ways of reaching your customers, whether it's through apps or your website, that process can take a pretty long time to get some of that technology rolled out. What has your experience been over the past 6 months?
It does take a long time to roll out. We were in a really fortunate position in that we already had an app that was completely contactless ordering and contactless pickup. So you go into the Mad Radish app, you pick your time, you place your order, you walk into the store. We had designed our stores to have delivery shelving right at the front of the store. So you don't need to talk to anyone. Your meal is ready for you with your name on it. You grab it, you go. And we'd like to add delivery to our Mad Radish app as well, and we're working on that now. But yeah, we're still in the process of figuring out the right system setup to be able to handle all these new demands that the customer is going to be placing on restaurants, to be able to service them in all these different ways.
Some entrepreneurs during this difficult time might have said that, okay, we're just going to focus on Mad Radish, that one brand. But what I think is really interesting is that you have 2 other food brands as well. Can you talk about that expansion?
Yeah, so as we started thinking about how we're going to strengthen our value proposition, we kept coming back to the essence of what we believe Mad Radish is all about, which is our food philosophy. And, we believe that people want simple, high quality ingredients and recipes, that they want big flavors. We believe that food needs to be made to order, but also built to travel. And fundamentally, we realized that we believe in gourmet fast foods, and that's what we're about. Now, what gourmet fast foods means is that you can have flavor and you can still have your meal prepared quickly. You can have both. You don't need to choose between the two. And that's where we kept coming back to. And then, of course, we asked ourselves after that, who is our customer? And we realized our customer is exactly that. They're the quality eater. They're people who appreciate gourmet fast foods. And we kind of realized that the same customer that orders a gourmet salad or a warm bowl at lunch is the same customer who might get a quality burrito or an artisanal pizza at dinner or on the weekends. And so we said to ourselves, well, how can we apply our food philosophy to these 2 categories that we think would round out our offering and elevate our value proposition to the customer? And that's what we did. We got to work on applying our food philosophy to these 2 new product categories. And we created 2 new brands. One of them is called Louisa's Burritos and Bowls. We launched it back in late April. And Louisa's is all about authentic South American ingredients. We do a fresher, greener burrito. A lot of made in-store ingredients, like my favorites are guacamole, which is incredible. We make it every single day fresh. And then after we launched Louisa's, we got to work on building Revival. And Revival Pizza is launching actually today in Ottawa and then in early November in Toronto. And Revival is Neapolitan style pizza, but with a modern twist. So again, applying the same philosophy of simple, high quality ingredients. We use our pizza sauce, for example, has 3 ingredients. It's got DOP certified San Marzano tomatoes. And DOP certified just means that it's certified in Italy, made in the Italian tradition. It's kind of like, borrowing an analogy from the tea world, Darjeeling. You can't make Darjeeling in China. There's special certifications for something to be called Darjeeling. So it's just San Marzano tomatoes, fresh oregano, salt, and then all the toppings that we use are instead of using regular mushrooms, we'll use a medley of 3 different specialty mushrooms, including maitake mushrooms, which is called hen of the woods here in North America. So that's what we did. We created these 2 new brands, and just like Mad Radish, we applied the same philosophies of simplicity, of quality, of food that can travel well. The food, all 3 brands are available to be ordered both in the store when you walk in the store and you want to order in the store and sit down, on the Mad Radish app for takeout, and we'll be adding delivery soon. And then on all of the relevant third-party platforms like Uber Eats as well. And so, we're creating a family of gourmet fast food brands. And the idea is that whether you're having lunch with 3 friends or colleagues or your family, one person can get a delicious burrito, another person can get an amazing warm bowl, and another person can get an incredible pizza, all in the same order.
So you mentioned the tea business for just a second there in your answer, and I wanted to go back to that because I imagine that with David's Tea, you were forced to pivot and adapt maybe on an annual basis or try new things, but it does feel in this new environment that these pivots or adaptations have to happen. I don't want to say weekly, but it feels like we're getting close. Can you talk a little bit about that experience where you're building businesses today where it is such a different environment?
It's completely different. The speed has accelerated. You can't be afraid to take big bets. At the same time, you need to get the data and the intelligence in order to be able to do it. Saying follow your customer, the customer's always right, is maybe a bit too simplistic, but you really got to ask yourself who is paying the bills and make sure that you're servicing them. David's Tea required a lot of pivots and a lot of innovation, and I think one of the things that they let go was that innovation, and I think it didn't serve them well. But with Mad Radish, we really are trying to build a better model for fast food. When you step back from the specifics of any one product and you just remember what your mission is, you're able to see it with a broader lens, and you're able to apply that mission to get more business, to get more people buying from you and servicing customers in a way that satisfies them.
So when you talk about that mission in terms of what you're building today and what the brand personifies, how do you categorize what you're doing? Because in many ways it is kind of retail, but it's kind of a digital business. Where does it fit?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. It's one of the interesting things about it. We're doing a hybrid between a ghost kitchen, and for those of you who don't know, a ghost kitchen is just a professional kitchen that is typically designed for delivery business. Usually they're in hidden warehouses or off the beaten path somewhere where you don't see them, and they just operate on Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes. We're doing a hybrid between a ghost kitchen and a restaurant. We're trying to take the best elements of both. And why we think that's important is, for starters, we don't think you can make food that's made to be eaten in a sit-down restaurant and then put it on a car or on a bike and send it to someone that they're going to eat it 20 to 40 to 50 minutes later. Food needs to be made to order, but it also needs to be built to travel. And so what this means is you need to be thinking about that in every element of your product creation and in your packaging as well. So, for example, the greens that we use in Mad Radish and in Louisa's, we didn't want to use greens that would wilt very easily. So we went with hardier greens. Or on Revival Pizza, as an example, although we wanted an airy, fluffy crust, we also want to make sure we had enough of a firm bottom to the pizza that it wouldn't flop over too easily and get soggy 40 minutes later. So that's really important. The second reason we didn't want to go with, the other reason we decided to do this hybrid model of ghost kitchen and restaurant is the problem with ghost kitchens is exactly that it's the word ghost. They're hidden. And I think there's two issues with that. The first is that we think that being able to see something, being able to experience the environment, see the people behind it, the cleanliness of the restaurant, these things add to trust, and they make you more comfortable ordering from various platforms from that restaurant. And the other thing is that we just fundamentally don't believe that in-person, face-to-face human contact, I don't think it's going to go extinct like the typewriter. You know, the typewriter was a tool, and it got replaced by a better tool. But in-person contact, connection with people, these are deep-seated needs we have as people, as mammals. And, you know, I think that a lot of creativity, ingenuity, warmth, connection, it comes out of being with other people, being out in the real world and experiencing that. And so we still think that people are going to want a place where they can walk in and whether it's sit in the window and read a book or read the news on their phone and eat a meal, or it's go with a friend and sit down and have a quick meal. We still think that that's going to exist. But we also think that the way the world's changed is that we've also come to realize that we don't need to go out into the physical world to do things that are a hassle for us anymore. There's easier ways to get those done. So we see it as offering a wide different ways for people to order our food, and there's going to be, it's completely multi-channel, and you need to be able to distribute in all these different ways. And it's just a question of managing the mix of how you're distributing, how much of the business will be delivery, how much of it will be in store. And that's the model we landed on. And you know, we're looking to expand that model and grow it today in the suburbs. And you know, we think our offering is much stronger now for the suburban market, whether that's lunch, dinner, or weekends between Mad Radish, Louisa's, and Revival. And then we believe one day, hopefully, back in the downtown cores.
I hear a lot of people talking about the future of this industry, and they talk about it in these terms where they say, what is retail going to be like, or the food industry after COVID? And I feel as though perhaps we're going to have to get to this point to realize there may not be an after COVID anytime soon. What's your reaction to that as far as surviving in this world where this pandemic is a reality for the near future?
Right now, it's about survival and resilience, and you have to hang on as best you can. And a lot of people, I mean, I was reading some of the stats, you know, the restaurant industry is something like a $90 billion of sales every year. 40 billion of that is gone. It's the #1 employer for first-time workers. Employs 1.2 million people before the pandemic. Within a few months of the pandemic, 800,000 of those jobs were gone. So yeah, it's been hit really, really hard. And we're evolving our business in the ways we've been talking about today to make ourselves, to raise the bar on delivery, but without compromising on the in-store experience for when it does come back. And I think that hopefully helps us bridge the gap enough between where we are today, which is primarily takeout and delivery, and where we'll hopefully be tomorrow, which is back in the real world a little bit. I mean, it's nice to have the flexibility of being able to work from home and have the flexibility of being able to order product on your screen, but being on the computer and on the internet can sometimes feel like being a fish in a fishbowl. And I think that one thing this pandemic is showing us is that there's a degree of loneliness, and for some even mild depression or moderate depression that's kind of kicked in. And you know, we're all realizing how valuable that human contact is, how nice it is to feel the sights and sounds of the world and the warmth of someone smiling back at you. And so, you know, we're preparing for a world where people are, you know, the trend towards delivery, the trend towards digital will continue, but one where the in-person comes back to some degree as well, and customers expect both depending on how they're feeling in that moment.
When we talk about lessons in terms of what we've all learned during 2020, I know there are plenty, but what would you say to those business owners right now who are struggling to perhaps adapt in this new world? What is the one lesson that you've learned this year that you think can carry over into 2021 and beyond?
You know, everybody licks their wounds at first and starts to feel sorry for themselves. And I'm no different. Believe me, I've had my moments through this, and I don't know anybody who hasn't. Moving is better than standing still. If you're going to go down, you got to go down trying. There's no guarantees in life, and you just got to calm yourself down enough to be able to think through what is really working and what isn't, and to consider some of the scary changes that you need to make in order to be resilient and get through this. I think that people get very afraid, and I'm certainly no different, of the uncertainty. And right now there is just an enormous amount of uncertainty, and no one has the crystal ball, sadly. But I think that you just got to keep showing up every day and come up with new and better ways as best you can. I mean, the one thing I know for sure is that in restaurants, if you do nothing and you expect the model to be exactly the same as it was prior to COVID, I expect that you will face some serious difficulties. So you're better off trying to move the business forward in a new way, in a better way, and elevate and raise the bar, both on your product and your operation and how you distribute your product and service your customer, than you are, reading the news headlines and hoping that eventually it just all returns to exactly the way it was before.
Last question for you, and this question is about optimism. And I'm thinking about a recent quote that I read from literary icon Margaret Atwood, where she said, people who are optimistic tend to take action to change things, where people who are pessimistic tend to not take action because they believe there's no point. What keeps you optimistic? Because I can hear that optimism in your voice today.
Well, I mean, I think, if I wasn't optimistic as an entrepreneur, I'd be on the ground crying in a ball. So, I mean, you have a choice. You could either you sit around and play the victim, I find that after 9 p.m., that's where my mind tends to go, as I start to get down on myself. I talk about all the things. Whenever using the words never and can't, you know that it's just time to shut it down for the night, I find. But look, I have my moments. Everybody does. This is an emotional roller coaster for all of us, and you got to keep your head up. I mean, and what kind of gives me comfort is I think about it in the context of what the world has been through. I mean, the world is a very tough neighborhood. We've been through a lot, whether that was the Spanish flu or 2 world wars, or there's just so much as you look at history that when you look at it in that context, COVID doesn't seem quite as scary. And we will get through this as we've gotten through all those other things. And, we will see better days. And so I sort of approach it as such. And I also realize that there's no sense me being my own worst enemy. And so it's important to do things for yourself, to take care of yourself, to be able to have a clear head so that you can address these business challenges. Because if you don't do that, you end up with sort of not great thinking. And that can lead to issues. And so at the end of the day, we fundamentally believe that people are going to want quality food that's made for them. And we think that gourmet fast food is something that's going to apply, whether it's during COVID, of course, to a lesser degree, just because the economy is not quite there yet, and after COVID, we think to a large degree. We think there's going to be a big customer base for this. So we're just focusing on getting ready and building our family of brands with Mad Radish, Louise's, and Revival, and being able to strengthen our value proposition.
Great. Thank you so much, David, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.